Plutocratic ideas. Plutocratic ideas are only available to countries without access to aristocratic, so you have to not be a monarchy or whatnot. Basically, you need to be either a republic or one of the weird Siberian clan council-y type governments to get access to plutocratic. Now, what are the ideas? Well, tradition of payment, abolished serfdom, Bill of Rights, free merchants, free subjects, free cities, emancipation, and the finisher. I personally, just to go on off a little bit of a tangent, love plutocratic ideas. I think it is a brilliant pick and mix bag of some of the best ideas from other groups. So, first idea, tradition of payment. Plus 10% available Mercs. So the amount of Merc number limit, the Merc available pool increases more, and it's determined as a fraction of your total force limit, and those Mercs that you now have available, all of them, the extra ones and the normal ones, have extra discipline. So this encourages you to play a Merc-focused gameplay, because you can keep a larger Merc army, and those Mercs are more effective. That being said, considering that Mercs... basically this counter plays against army professionalism, and Mercs are so expensive early game, so it's more of a late game, I just want to throw money at the problem to make my enemy go away, mid to late game solution, or at least in a long-term sense. Now, these two modifiers are obviously very synergistic, but they are fairly small modifiers, so probably not worth paying too much heed to. Abolished serfdom. Plus 10% army morale. Note that this is 50% weaker than the plus 15% army morale in defensive ideas, but it is still nevertheless a very strong buff. Higher max morale results in you dealing more and being able to take more morale damage. Your armies will stay in a fight longer. This means that the longer they're in the fight, the longer they're dishing out damage. It also allows you more time to throw in reinforcement stacks. Aside from tech levels that give you tactics, as well as tech levels that unlock new units with new pips, this is going to be one of the strongest early in the game combat modifiers, the extra morale. And it would be a game-changing early combat modifier. Later game, discipline takes over as strong cannons start filling the back ranks, and damage dealt rather than ability to sit around absorbing damage becomes the more significant combat concern. Idea 3, Bill of Rights, -2 national unrest. Note that this is basically the pick and mix component from humanist ideas, whereas the last one was the pick and mix component from defensive, but watered down a little bit. This one is the pick and mix from humanist, in that it provides the same strength -2 national unrest as the humanist idea equivalent. How do you use national unrest well? Well, national unrest allows you to potentially go conquering new land and not increase the autonomy when you do so, which helps it economically integrate and contribute into your nation more quickly. It can also help overcome the unrest caused by negative events or by having unhappy estates, and also obviously helps prevent rebels from developing in conquered lands. Next, merchants. This is the pick and mix component from trade ideas. You get an extra merchant. That being said, how do you use a merchant? Well, you use an extra merchant to either steer trade or collect trade in another node that you weren't before. That being said, I would personally suggest that rather than thinking about trying to assemble more merchants via ideas, you're much better off going and doing a colonizing idea group, and that will give you a much larger number of potential extra merchants based on having a colonial nation over 10 provinces, based on being able to island hop towards a trade company region and either colonizing there or taking over land there from the natives. And also, if you're using your merchant to steer trade, it's worth mentioning that probably the best way of steering trade more effectively is not so much through using your merchant to provide a modifier in a contested trade area, but rather just taking control of all the bloody land in the trade area. Next idea, free subjects, 10% goods produced modifier. This is essentially the pick and mix component from economic ideas, except that it's better than the ones in economic ideas. So it is a double whammy. It provides you not only an increase to the amount of production in each province, which then directly gives you a bonus to how much you get from production income from those provinces, but also it gives you a flow-on effect into trade. If those provinces are producing more trade goods, then that trade region will have more value in it because it's got more goods times value in it, because it's got more goods. And it means you'll also be collecting extra money from trade. Now, this can also potentially be a bit of a downside in that if you were adding lots of trade value to a trade node that you do not have good control of, but a neighbor or enemy has good control of, then you're effectively helping give your enemy or potential rivals and whatnot extra money as well. So keep in mind that this is encouraging you to fully dominate trade in a region even more. That being said, even with that slight downside, it is still an amazing idea. It is a very, very, very significant double buff to your economy. The next idea is it's the nasty poo, the wet fart of this idea group. Plus 25% caravan power. It is a slight buff for your inland trade steering, and as I said before with the merchant one, you're basically better off just controlling all the land rather than trying to use modifiers to influence how much trade you have in a region. That being said, where is it best? It will be best in a large trade area that has lots of little nations in it, or one big nation where it's not diplomatically feasible to go absorb all the land. Next idea. Emancipation provides plus 20% manpower recovery. This is the pick and mix component from quantity ideas. It is the same manpower recovery speed bonus as the manpower recovery speed bonus you would get from quantity ideas. How do you use this? Well, extra manpower recovery allows you to have a larger army to run more wars without running out of manpower. It gives you potentially the ability to keep a larger standing army and have more complete manpower, which helps you look more attractive as a potential ally and like less of a valid target to enemies. If you have a full manpower pool, your enemies are less likely to attack you because they say, he could keep reinforcing his armies if I attacked him. Whereas if you've got next to no units and next to no manpower, they start getting hungry eyes and looking at you as if they could eat you. And the same to potential coalition members. They factor in how much manpower you have in how much they think they want to attack you. And the finisher, plus 10% institution spread. This is also pretty weak overall, because realistically, you're not going to be using this to get an economic saving. You could argue you could try and use this to get an economic saving by having your institution spread further before you click the button, but most of the time you're just going to be clicking the button to embrace the institution as quick as you can, and all this really does is give you maybe 1 or 2 tech ups that you wouldn't have with the institution active. So it is a slight monarch point saving, but only very occasionally. And to summarize, plutocratic ideas are a bit of a pick and mix bag of some of the best ideas from a number of other idea groups. As well as, for a pure military idea group, it provides a number of non-direct military outputs. It provides morale of armies, national unrest reduction, goods produced modifier, manpower recovery speed. All of those ideas are very strong ideas. The trouble with plutocratic ideas is that in order to gain access to them, instead of having the aristocratic idea group, it would normally require you converting to a republic government type, with certain exceptions like the Siberian clan councils, which is a somewhat unappealing mid to late game proposition owing to the lower absolutism cap that republics have. So basically this is a very strong consider if you're one of the nations that starts with access to it, but probably not worth generally jumping through the hoops to gain access to it to take it.